When the first 2 episodes of Obi Wan dropped, and even with episode 3, some of you fiercely defended it, which is cool. I understand fandom, the dark side and the light side, right? The Sith and the Jedi. However, I think with episode 4, even if you love the show, and please, nobody should attack this show, but I think anyone, except for the most diehard fans, the most Jedi Star Wars faithful, would admit that this show is surprisingly amateurish for, the third, or, not including seasons, but the third live-action Star Wars show on Disney+, and also one that features such iconic characters and actors like Ewan McGregor. You would think that Star Wars would have brought their A game for this. You would think it would be the best one yet. Although I think that's going to be reserved for Andor. And I'm still excited about Andor, even though I think this is not going the way we thought it would. Star Wars. They love to flip expectations on their head, right? That's going to haunt them forever. But I can't believe there's only 2 episodes left and so little has happened in the first 4. But yet a lot has. It's weird, but it feels like not a lot has happened. I'd also like to add that Star Wars needs to work harder to diversify their portfolio, as The Mandalorian, The Bad Batch, Boba Fett, and now Obi-Wan all seem sort of the same, even down to looking after kids. And again, here's hoping that Andor is a breath of fresh air. If he talks to one child, I'm going to be upset. We've already done that enough. And you can't top these cute kids. Let's move on to something else. And what was O'Shea Jackson Jr. bragging about on Twitter? His role, at least so far, doesn't seem that great or notable. I mean, again, it's like setting, not only subverting expectations, but you don't want to set up expectations if you know what's the reality can't possibly live up to what you've teased. So I think that Star Wars and the people involved with it need to be a little bit more careful on that front as well. All right, let's talk part 4 of Obi Wan Kenobi, where a lot happened. Yet again, it still seemed like sort of a filler episode. And it was short, boy. It was super short, too short. Although the Bad Batch episodes I checked are even shorter, and it always felt to me like more happened in that half hour than this one. To me, the best part of the episode was, and that, by the way, the Bad Batch really grew on me. Bad Batch isn't really something that I would recommend watching weekly. Season 2 starts, I think, like in September, right? But it's a great binge. Get a couple episodes, bank a couple episodes, and then watch 3 or 4, and you'll have like a really good time. I'm excited for season 2. Omega is a fabulous character. I hope she shows up someday in live action. All right, so anyway, to me, the best part of this episode was seeing Obi-Wan get his Jedi on. From mind tricks, I think that was a mind trick when he said, look down the hallway. To lightsabers in the dark. That was great. It's like a song, lightsabers in the dark. But I like that. I thought that was really good. A great visual. To holding back the CGI water until just the right moment. As I said during the watch along, of course he's fine. Not only do we know that he makes it to episode 4, but he's of course the star of this show. They're like, will he make it to the doors in time? I'm like, of course he will. A lot of stormtroopers, though, died making this episode. And I was surprised how much Obi-Wan kills. You would think the Jedi would have a wound, not kill directive, but I guess the stakes are high. The CGI window crack, though, was a lot more impressive to me than the water. I liked that crack. I thought that was really cool. I really loved it in particular when the water was dripping through. You could just feel the wetness, especially because it was probably all CGI, but it felt really real. I was like, that water's coming through, man. And Ewan McGregor, I think, did help sell it, with his holding the water back. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Although, how are those windows not blaster-proof? This is a military installation that's patrolled. And surely they would have a blaster-proof glass installed, or they would at least know that they didn't and have their stormtroopers and other people patrol with different weapons. You'd be like, you can't bring a blaster down here. You'll crack the glass. So you just slap each other, I guess. But, I thought that didn't, it was a cool moment. But it's again, like many things on this show, when you think back to it, like a lot of people saying, how did Reva get to the end of the tunnel before Leia? You're right. It doesn't make any sense. And this doesn't make any sense either. Also, during the watch along, some of you said that the lightsabers here just don't look right. And I'm inclined to agree with you. I can't quite put my finger on it, and I'll take any lightsaber action I can get. but it does look more like Obi-Wan is wielding a light-up stick than a laser sword. It seems more solid than it should. And when he like flails it around, I don't know what it is. It just seems off. And I guess it seems more like posturing than actual cool, sword fighting moves. Perhaps that's what it is. Maybe the choreography is not good enough. And I'd really like to know what Darth Vader is doing that's so important that he can outsource finding Obi-Wan and the path, where they're hiding and getting all these Force-sensitive people to escape, that he can outsource that task to Reva. And that's a serious, honest question, by the way. I'd really like to know. I mean, some of you might be like, well, Grace, but here's the thing. You got to make it accessible to everybody. I mean, if you're going to have something that has so many different stories that are told in so many different mediums, you have to make sure that the people who don't partake in every single thing can follow what's going on. I mean, obviously he's got stuff to do as he created the Inquisitors as his elite Jedi hunting force, but why isn't he the Grand Inquisitor? We're not that busy on this show. How about a day in the life of Vader? Give me 7 episodes instead of 6. I would love that. Also, when is Hayden Christensen going to show up in a meaningful way? Again, we just have 2 episodes left. And this was sold as a show about Obi-Wan and Vader, yet I think it's really a show about Leia and Reva, which is fine with me, but nobody likes a bait and switch. I don't know why Lucasfilm continually does this to themselves. Lucasfilm is like, why does everybody pick on us? And it's like, well, you know that you get picked on, so you would think that you would try and like Reva, head this off at the pass, man. I mean, I think at this point they should know where they're going to get hit, and they would work harder to have a more solid defense. All right, so the other day, accepting his MTV Movie Awards Gold Popcorn for Best Villain for his role in The Lost City, Daniel Radcliffe made headlines declaring that the British accent is universally recognized as pure evil. I know some of you are going to get upset about that, but I think that's pretty funny because, of course, that's always the accent of villains in movies. I think that's funny. I think that's clever. Maybe it's all the imperialism. Get over it. But anyway, perhaps it's her American accent. But Reva, despite her best efforts, doesn't seem that evil to me. I get the overwhelming feeling that she's a good guy, and we'll see if that's foreshadowing something that's going to happen in the last 2 episodes, or maybe just some, let's just say, interesting acting choices. Or that it's tough to sell interrogating a small child. Giancarlo Esposito could do it without a British accent, although he has impeccable diction. It also might just be the Jedi in her. Fortress Inquisitorius, I think that's a silly name, but fine, that's been around. It's not just the secret base of operations for Vader's Inquisitors. Not so secret though. They were just parading all around Tatooine and everybody seemed to know who they were. And they're dressed just like Vader. You'd think they'd be more ninja spy-like if they were supposed to be so secret. But anyway, it's not just where the Jedi they've captured are entombed in the basement like Han Solo, only I don't think they can get unfrozen. Although that is very much like what happened to Han Solo, come to think of it. And I wish there had been nameplates. How many Jedi did you recognize in the basement? It's also where the Inquisitors would try to break Jedi and turn them to the dark side to become Inquisitors. Some they broke, and some went to the basement. And I wonder if Fortress Inquisitorius, on that note, is where Reva was forged, where she was turned to the dark side. And I don't think they turned her very far, because she still seems quite nice to me. In the very interrogation room, by the way, where young Leia is tied up, the fact that those restraints don't need to be adjusted that much for a child, pure evil, as we saw in the tomb with that child, that youngling who was frozen. Good thing Reva planted a tracker on Leia's droid Lola, because it was getting real Keystone Cops towards the end of this episode, throughout really most of the episode. I mean, Obi Wan and Tala walked Leia out under an Empire trench coat. I don't know why the Empire has trench coats, but they do. And she was under a trench coat. I mean, they framed it in a way that it's kind of believable, but come on. Like, you try walking someone out in a trench coat through a lobby of a building and see how far you get. Maybe they should have stopped to buy a ticket for an adult movie and sneak Leia in. I mean, that's when Obi Wan and Tala should have realized it was a trap, and poor Wade died just to help sell it, which is kind of cool when you think about it, and I wish they'd sold that better. That would be very cold of Reva. She didn't even have to kill Wade, but she did it just to make them seem, to sell that they had escaped. Fortress Inquisitorius is featured heavily in the popular video game Jedi Fallen Order, a sequel, which, by the way, was just announced at Star Wars Celebration. And so some of you during the watch along were delighted to see it, kind of in live action. I mean, a lot of that's CGI, but you were like, wow, that's Fortress Inquisitorius. And you get to go inside and have some of the same revelations that you saw in the game. However, for those of us not familiar with Jedi Fallen Order, this episode doesn't hit in the same way, and it offers more evidence that relying on Easter eggs isn't enough to tell a compelling story. You need an actual really good story as the baseline, and Easter eggs are the decoration, not the meat. They're the garnish. Also, while Obi-Wan might be surprised to discover what's in the basement, he's been living in isolation for a decade on Tatooine. How is everyone else surprised? Wouldn't Tala have heard about this? Especially if she's, she should know what she's protecting Force-sensitive individuals from. I mean, Cal Kestis in the game already discovered all of this years ago. Didn't he tell anybody? I wouldn't think it would be that big a secret, and the show presented it as such, though. Leia's story is getting pretty good, though, with her capture and interrogation here mimicking, yet a lot more serious than what happens years later in A New Hope. That's a picnic compared to this. Less snarky, I think they did a better job writing her this episode, and with more levels to play, Vivian Lyra Blair, I think, did an excellent job this episode, not only portraying Leia as a fighter, but as an intelligent opponent with a lot beneath the surface, which is great. I think that was really good. Still, with all the dangers she finds herself in from such an early age, how does she not realize she's Force sensitive until much later in life? I mean, I know George Lucas made a lot of this up on the fly early on, but the current writers are supposed to fix all these problems. I'd be like, she's in such danger, you would think that her Force sensitiveness would kick in. And also, if the path is supposed to ferry Force sensitive children to safety and stuff, you think they'd be pretty good at recognizing it. It doesn't make that much sense when you think about it. So finally, there's some other stuff I'd like to touch on before we wrap up here. Tala, I thought, did a pretty good job bluffing her way through the fortress. Talk about a boss bitch. That was cool. But it was a missed opportunity, I felt, for that guy sitting next to her at the consoles to react when she beat up that other officer like just a few feet away. There's no way the other people in the room didn't hear that. And I get them not wanting to mix in. They're like, whoa, I'm very close to a promotion. I don't want to deal with this. But they should have shown them making that choice, because it just seems silly that didn't register at all. Also, I love me some Stormtrooper banter. They're like, this place sucks. I hope we get transferred soon. I like that. Although I'd have appreciated some more commentary about how it's rough to do this job with kids. It's like a regular thing there. They got to tie up kids. You think that they would, that would be what really makes it suck to work there. The recruited stormtroopers, the non-clones, are clearly dumb and incompetent. And I like when they earn their inclusion in the story with humor and awesome kills like last week. I guess them floating in the hallway was pretty cool too. Finally, while the inside is only okay and very CGI, the deck of Fortress Inquisitorius, which is also probably CGI, but I liked it better. It had a lot of natural light. I liked it. Pretty sweet. I just wish the sequence would have been longer so we could have seen more lightsaber moves from Reva, who wields hers with a distinct swagger. And oh yeah, the Bacta connection between Obi Wan and Vader was funny. Bacta tanks in the night. But not long enough, I think, to be really interesting. Also, enough with Bacta tanks already. I think they're leaning on these a little too heavily. Like, for instance, that Obi-Wan could stay underwater and swim a great distance for such a long time and through so many obstacles after just having his arm burned up was very convenient, right? Bacta tanks, invented by writers, or lazy writers, no less. So just 2 episodes left. Will Obi-Wan be like almost all other Disney Plus shows and really step up its game with episodes 5 and 6? We'll see. Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.